What's up guys, and welcome back to the Bonsai-En YouTube channel. I'm Josh, and in today's lesson we're going to show you how to strategically prune your bonsai tree to get the most out of your design and your ramification. Now before we get into it, I just want to let you know that this video is actually taken from one of our brand new online bonsai classes. So we'll give you some links to those down in the description below. These are probably the easiest way to learn bonsai at home. They're probably the cheapest way to learn bonsai at home. You'll be surprised at how cheap they are. So give the link a click and go check that out. We have everything organized into specific classes. So if you want to learn about black pine, you can learn about that. If you want to learn about spring techniques, you can learn about that. Or if you want to up your wiring skills, you can learn about that. So head on over after the video and check them out. But for now, enjoy this lesson. Shoot selection. So obviously, when we're pruning our tree, once again, we're not just haphazardly coming in and pruning our tree. There was a debate a couple of years back about people hedge pruning their trees. So essentially just coming in and just pruning them to a shape without actually putting much thought into, where you're actually going to cut and where you're not going to cut. So we're going to have a look at some shoot selection here. So we've actually got two examples of broadleaf trees here. So on this side, this is what we call alternating species. And then on this side here is what we call opposite growth species. So you can see that on this one, the leaves come out alternating to one another. They don't come out directly opposite one another. Where on this one, you can see that the leaves pretty much shoot out opposite one another. So some of our species you'll run into their alternating species, and the other you'll run into their opposite leaf pattern trees. So once again, we've got some considerations to make here. So branch thickness. So like we just spoke about, is when we come into prune, we're really looking at the base of the branch itself and seeing whether it's at the thickness we want. So for these new shoots that are here, let's just pretend these are your spring shoots that have come out and they've elongated. So what we're looking at is right here, at the base of these shoots. Is this at the thickness that we want it to be? Does it taper in nicely with the last year's growth? So you can see here that this actually does work quite nicely with last year's growth. So this is at a point now that we could come back and we could prune. Otherwise, if these two little bits here were still too thin and they didn't look substantial and they didn't taper in nicely with last year's growth, we could let these grow some more. Let them elongate some more, get some more leaves happening up along here. And then once we've reached our desired thickness at this part, then we can cut back. So that's what I'm talking about when we're looking for branch thickness and whether we need to prune yet. Next thing is, like we just spoke about, is branch length. So have we got the length that we need in our branch, or do we need to extend it a little bit more to make sure that the branch gets out to the silhouette or the design that we need? Or is it getting shaded by something above it? If so, then we let the branch extend a little bit more. The next thing that we need to consider when we come in and prune is the new shoot direction. So this is where your alternating and your opposite pattern are going to matter a little bit. But when we get into the end of this class and we talk about the hormones that are really important, this is where you're going to learn about really understanding those hormones and how they work. But quickly right now, if I were to cut here, these two buds would take off. If I were to cut here, these two buds would take off. If I were to cut just here, these two buds would take off. So you can see that wherever you make that cut, the two dormant buds right behind that cut site are the two that are going to take off. Now every now and then you can have more than two take off, but you only want to just go with the theory that only the two behind the cut side are going to take off, because then you can't really fail then. But like I've got this point here, you always want to check your leaf for a dormant bud. So this is only going to be really important if you're going to cut back to the first two leaves. So you're going to hear people say a lot, and I think we mentioned this in the last class, but cut back to your last two leaves when you're pruning. Now, this is sometimes good advice and this is sometimes bad advice, and this is why I want you guys to understand this a lot more than everybody else does. So rather than somebody just telling you, oh, cut back to the first two leaves, you want to think about this a little bit more strategically. Now, if the reason they say cut back to the first two set of leaves is because that's where the shorter internode is. All right, and that's where you're going to get your best bang for your buck with your ramification. So, and I'm thinking I may have actually not put a slide together, but I do have the picture ready to go, so I can bring it in for you guys anyway. But we're going to talk about internode length in spring growth. So the reason they say that we cut back to our first two sets of leaves is because your first internode's always going to be the shortest one, and then your next one will be slightly longer, and then your next one will get slightly longer, and then your next one will get slightly longer. So if we cut back to the first two set of leaves, we're always keeping that shortest internode, and then that means we can get more ramification in a smaller area. But there's a couple of problems with this. One, sometimes the first leaf on that branch doesn't actually have a bud in it. So you actually have to physically check that if I'm going to cut back to my first two set of leaves just here, does that first leaf here actually have a bud in it? Because if not, well then maybe we're cutting here because these two leaves actually have a bud in them and this one doesn't. So always physically check that first leaf to make sure it's got a bud in it. So if the first two leaves do have buds in them, sweet, we can cut back to them. But the next things that we need to consider is, one, branch length. So if we need a longer branch, then maybe we're going to cut back to out here and then start our ramification from here because we need that extra length. Whereas if we were to cut back to the first two in here, then maybe we're starting our ramification too far back. Now, that's going to be a rare occasion that happens. Normally, we want to start our ramification further back into the tree as we possibly can. But you may have a tree that's just got a huge canopy and you're trying to grow a bottom branch out. And maybe that bottom branch is new to the tree. You've been waiting for that branch for a couple of years to form. And now you want it to catch up to the rest of the tree. So that might be a situation where you need a little bit of extra length. So you wouldn't just cut back to the first two set of leaves. You would actually leave a little bit of length on the branch and cause these two buds to pop rather than the first two. Now, on our trees like this, we need to consider our new shoot direction because, like I said, if we cut here, we're going to get these two buds that are going to pop. So you can see that our first leaf here is actually pointing off into this direction. And that's going to be our main branch that's going to take off. And then this one's going to come off into this direction. So we may actually want to put, because we've got this branch right next to it, what we wouldn't want to do is cut here so our main branch is coming in here, and then this one in here we cut here so this main branch is coming into here, where they're essentially just going to run into each other. And then, you know, we've got limited space in the middle of those two branches. So in this case here, we might directionally prune this one out so it goes out this way and then this comes into here. And then we might directionally prune this one so that this branch comes out into here and then this one comes up into here like this. And now these two branches that are on the inside aren't going to really run into each other as quickly as the other two would have. And then this is the same the whole way around your branching. You're just kind of looking at it. Now, this branch, well, this sketch that I've got here for you too, it's a little bit harder to get good branching on it, because what I would do in this situation is I would actually put wire on these branches to start with. And what you can do with wire is actually, so as we come up here like this, we might actually go like this with this branch. That way these two buds would actually come to here and here like this. And we've actually pointed them further away from this branch, and we could wire this one to come in like this, but we've essentially just created room for these buds when they grow out into here and out into here and out into here and out into here. And then it's the same next year. We might wire this back off into this direction like this and like that. And once again, we're just creating room for our new buds when they take off. So it is a little bit harder to show you this on branches that are somewhat straight, because they're always obviously going to run into each other, but we can manipulate that.